All right, welcome to Letter of Intent 101. I just wanted to use this specific deal since um, this is basically kind of like the first deal you can watch from beginning to end. So that way it'll be a little more fun to like actually pay attention to instead of just using some random LOI template. I'm sure a lot of this is going to be straightforward, so forgive me for over communicating some of it, but I know you've definitely asked some questions that I also haven't gone over that I just assumed you would know, like things like how we get paid and stuff like that. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of go through every single section, not only of this LOI that's from the landlord, but also the template LOI that I've already drafted on behalf of Trophy. The difference between the two is this one has already been a template that we have used and kind of I've figured out things that are sensitive to them, things that are they don't really care about, things that have been problems in deals before, such as getting paid, um, certain language that I've been able to get with tenants like AT&T that most tenants aren't able to get, but because landlords know my experience with them with other big tenants and language that I've been able to achieve, they know that they can't kind of pull the wool over my eyes on some of this stuff. So, for example, one of the things is occupancy threshold. That's something most landlords wouldn't give you, but AT&T has this protection in all their leases. Basically, lets them out of their lease in a way, or at least reduce their rents in the event the shopping center all of a sudden starts losing all of its tenants. So just random stuff like that I know I've been able to get. And that's kind of the main difference between using our template and using their template. And what I'm going to do, it's going to be kind of long, but is I'm going to go through both LOIs. So I've already drafted this one, so it's not going to be too long. But I'm going to redline the LOI just so you can kind of see the process of doing that, because sometimes that is quicker. And then I'm also going to update this LOI a little bit to kind of reflect some of the negotiations as well that we have now in writing from the landlord. So, and then after that, basically, and normally I would never do two LOIs, but after that, I can kind of look at them and be like, all right, which one should I use? One of them, I'm definitely going to send, this one to Trophy, for example. But which one am I going to use to send back to the landlord? The more I'm talking here, the more I'm probably going to use ours. But sometimes, for the sake of being expedient, I'll use the landlord's. So here's theirs. And again, forgive me for saying stupid stuff that you may obviously know, but better to make sure you do know. But redlining a document is something that's super prominent in negotiations. Sometimes you may literally never speak to another person. You'll just email, get an LOI proposal like this, and then you'll redline it back and forth until there's an agreement. And the way you do that is you click review, click track changes, and then you can click on this little arrow right here. You can click change username, which I try to make sure that I have a habit of clicking that every single time just to make sure these initials say what they should say. Usually it'll say my initials in here, but sometimes, for example, I'll put landlord because I'll be making, like maybe the landlord called me and told me something verbally, and then I have to make their comments on this document. I got to make sure that I put their initials. I'll show you why here in a second, but basically when you hover over the comment, it'll show those initials. And if it shows the wrong, person, you can kind of get in trouble for that because it looks like you're saying someone agreed to something that they may not have. So this is kind of important to make sure this is correct every single time. So I just try to get in the habit of at least checking. Whether it's my initials or the tenants, that's fine. So like I could put Trophy and then like TC or something. So that would be fine. Since I don't actually have Trophy's comments, I'm going to just use my initials because it's a little more easy to explain in case I do something wrong. So just starting top to top to bottom, left to right. That's the most efficient way to do something without mistakes. It sounds super elementary, but literally, if you just jump around and go, boom, I see a square foot here, then boom, back up, enter here, and then boom here. If you jump around, it's really easy to mess up. So top to bottom, left to right, most obvious thing in the world. But Trophy Cupcakes LLC, dear Jennifer. So that's all correct. Trade name is Trophy Cupcakes and Party. That's their full name. Jennifer will definitely want me to make sure I say that. The financial information, again, I almost jumped down a few there, but line by line. Financial information, tenant shall provide financial statements for the tenant entity. That's totally fine. Space number is correct. Square footage is correct. Landlord reserves the right to move the premises in either direction within 40 feet of the location proposed in letter of intent. We are saying hell no to that. Because that could put us way down the hall the other way behind other kiosks, and that is not what we're agreeing to. So definitely making sure. Okay, so here I have a use clause that we have used in other centers. She's just making up a very basic use clause, but what I will do is I'll just jump over here. Oh, this one looks like it says to be defined. So I have a use clause. Let's just go ahead and grab it from Northgate. This is just another example here how we can draft or comment on an LOI. This is the most recent LOI that says to be defined. So this is the lease. The use clause should definitely be in here. Use of premises. The business of retail sale of cupcakes, macarons, specialty cakes, baked goods. Okay, so we're gonna copy most of this. Because that is a good idea because they will want to sell that. And then we'll go ahead and throw this in the use clause here. Keep the text the same. Change some punctuation. For the purpose of conducting therein the business of the retail sale of cupcakes, macaroons, specialty cakes, baked goods. They are not going to be allowed to sell any beverages at this location because there's no plumbing. So we're not even going to go there. As an incidental use, the premises may be used for the retail sale of party supplies and greeting cards. And that actually is a fairly big business for them, so I'm going to leave that in there. And then this is a perfect use clause. This is something we would have agreed to in another lease. So now I move on. Term of lease, approximately 5 years. I'm going to leave that. Estimated delivery dates, 4/1. That's potentially possible. Rental commencement date, they're giving us 60 days to build our kiosk or the earlier of store opening. I think that's ridiculously generous for a kiosk. Kiosks are typically 2 to 3 day installations, unless it's like a very permanent, stick built from the ground up kind of thing, which we're definitely not doing. We're going to prefab most of this. So what I do like doing is making sure that I ask to remove the earlier of part of this, or the early of store opening, because that way if we open up earlier, we actually get 60 days free rent, which is cool. So I'm just going to delete that sentence. Minimum annual rental, $42,000, which is basically already what we know is less than what they'll agree to, which is great. So instead of countering this and even messing around here, typically I would always counter the rent and try to get it lower. But I would rather go for tenant allowance here and get an entire kiosk paid for and our fee, instead of messing with this. So also, I'm going to send this to Trophy to approve prior, but I'm hoping they're going to understand that if they want money to build the kiosk, they can't negotiate this. So just to read it real quick, $42 per year, commencing on the above rental commencement date with 3% annual increases beginning 6/1/2020. That's great. Percentage rental, 15% of tenants' gross sales in excess of the initial breakpoint, which shall increase each year by the term 3%. So, percentage rent, we may have never talked about this, but essentially what this says is any dollar amount that they sell over $281,000, they have to pay rent on. So, in quick layman's terms, if they sell $300,000, you subtract the 281,460 out of that 300,000, and then that remaining number of sales, you take 15% of that, and that's the percentage rent. This is very, very normal in all malls to have percentage rent. AT&T and Verizon and T-Mobile are some of the only tenants in the entire country who do not pay this, and it's because they're so big and they have so much control and manipulation, they can do things like that. A tenant like Trophy is not going to be able to do that. So I'm going to leave this breakpoint number. Well, actually, no, I'm not. So there's a couple different ways to do this. And again, I'm going through this on a video here so that you have basically like a reference tool. Like instead of just going over this on a phone call with you, you can like rewind it, go back to it, listen to it, see what the hell I'm even saying. So there's two ways to do this, and there's many ways. The two main ways are what's called a natural breakpoint and an unnatural breakpoint. So what that means, a natural breakpoint is when you take the percentage number and you divide that by the total rent. So if I go, let's see, just so it's on the screen here, we'll go calculator. So if I go 42,219 divided by 0.15, that gives me a natural breakpoint of 281,460, which is exactly what she's done here. So there's also a way to do this. So again, she's saying initial breakpoint. What she should be saying is natural breakpoint. You can do what's called an unnatural breakpoint, where that means basically these numbers are not tied. You're just picking a percentage rate and a breakpoint number that don't mathematically equate. So basically, I can say 10% of tenants' gross sales in excess of the initial unnatural breakpoint of $500,000. So that way, a little easier math would be if they sell more than $500,000, let's say, for using round numbers, $550,000, then you take the $550,000, you subtract the 500 from it, leaves you $50,000, and then they have to pay 10% rent on that amount, which means they'd be paying an extra $5,000 a year in rent. That's an extremely fair deal for the landlord right here. This is what I think we should counter at. I know what Trophy's sales are, and their best stores do 750. I think this has a really good chance of being a very, equivalent store to some of those other ones that do high sales like that. However, since they're only selling cupcakes and macaroons, they might not be able to hit 750, but I think 500 is really, really good. So this is what I'm going to recommend to Trophy to do. Now, just to show you, if this was a natural breakpoint, you would take, because they may negotiate it to be that way. You'll take the rent again, which is 42,219 per year, divided by 10%. So it'd be a natural breakpoint of 422,190. So as you can see, an unnatural breakpoint that's even higher is better for us because that means it will take an even higher amount of sales for that percentage rent to ever kick in. So you always want to at least be higher than the natural breakpoint if you're going to go in natural. Otherwise, you want to make sure you keep it at a natural and you don't go in the other way. Otherwise, that's bad for the tenant. So anyways, that's percentage rent. I'll move on. Rent stabilization for any lease year in which percentage rent is payable in the first blah, 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 blah. Minimum annual rental. So it increased. I'm going to delete that because that's not good. Now, here's something I haven't done the math on yet, but usually in kiosks, it's not that big a deal. Oftentimes with kiosks, because they're not considered actual real estate, like they're not actually considered like an inline real estate space, and they're basically being built out in the common area, they don't typically charge the extra. So they definitely would not charge the real estate tax because there would not be any actual real estate they would be paying. Now, what you'll see here is it's potentially going to be okay because the amount that this would equal to is going to be fairly insignificant. I'm still probably going to push back, but I'll just go through it real quick just to, did I close the calculator? Yes, I did. So, okay, so 4801 times 150 square feet is only $7,000. So that does jump that rent up. Okay, so it looks like she is trying to charge 55 maybe total. So we'll see here as we go. Okay, so let's go clear. 2431 times 150 is $36,000. Okay, so better way to do this is take all the extras, add them up, and then do it. Because you aren't seeing my notes I'm taking on the side here. So let's do this first times 150. So 12,781 plus her rent of 42,219. 42,219. So yeah, okay. So things are starting to click here the more I get into this. So now I can definitely see she really was trying to charge 55,000. She did tell me she was not going to be charging CAM though, because that's just not what you do with kiosks. So I am going to delete this altogether because this is a pro rata charge on the center that is spread across all of the inline spaces. She probably doesn't know that I know that, but I do. So especially with taxes, this is absolutely not a taxed area because it is not a real estate space. It is common area. So I'm going to delete all these. It's slightly insignificant because it's not that much money. I already thought we were going to get 55, so that kind of equals that anyways. But anyways, this is just how the negotiation works back and forth. The utilities here, these are what they are. I'm not going to touch them. Those are not negotiable. The promotional charge is definitely always negotiable. Taxes are negotiable on kiosks. The CAM is sometimes negotiable unless it says pro rata, which means they're charging us an actual pro rata, like what the actual costs are. When they charge a fixed rate, which actually that is what this looks like because it says 5% fixed annual increases, then that's basically another source of what's called extra rent or additional rent that they're trying to get. They're basically just overcharging us for common area maintenance, and we're not going to pay that. So I think probably what happens here is we'll get the promotional charge deleted. We'll get the cam charge deleted. I'll probably you know, go down the path of agreeing to taxes because that would be fair to pay that, even though we're not supposed to, but we can at least give them something. Anyways, just going through these again in detail so you can understand. So utilities, we're just going to skip because that is what it is. Radius restriction. I never ever let my clients agree to this unless it's something super reasonable, like a half a mile or something like that. I totally understand why they try to do this with like other tenants, like a clothing store or something. Like you wouldn't want like a Lululemon store in here and across the street at an inline center because then it takes away from those customers coming to the mall. But Trophy is a food operator, and they need to be able to put a kiosk in as many places as they can, especially when it's a limited location like this where they can only sell cupcakes. If they want to go up the hill by the airport or something like that, or in the airport, they need to be able to do that. Even if they want to go across the freeway over somewhere in Renton, they need to be able to do that. So those are all like Trophy is a neighborhood kind of tenant, so they're not a regional tenant. So definitely deleting this. And what I should do is just delete this whole section like that. That's going to look better. This is definitely not agreeable. We're going to delete this whole thing. They do not have the right to relocate us. This is the only place Trophy thinks that they would be able to succeed here. Therefore, if they want to relocate us, they're going to have to pay us back all the money we spent on construction, pay us damages, and they're going to have to, pay out of pocket to move us. So, addition of a major tenant. If landlords add a major tenant of at least 75,000 square feet, minimum annual rental will increase by 15%. There's no way they're doing this, and I'm not going to even go down the rat hole of talking about it. Delivery of premises as is. It's a tile floor with electrical outlets. That's totally fine and normal. Tenants work, store design, and construction prior to RCD. This is huge. So, tenant shall use landlord's floating retail design criteria for the design build of the kiosk. We already have the kiosk criteria manual of this. I went through it, found a couple things. I don't think there's anything that's too bad, but that floating part is a reference. I think I sent you a separate email about it. All of tenants' work shall be subject to landlord's prior approval and shall be performed in accordance with the tenant kiosk criteria manual, like I was just talking about. A fully refundable construction deposit in the amount of $2,500 is required. That's totally normal. I wouldn't imagine even asking to do anything less. I think that's, even if we're going to be the GC, I'll put the $2,500 down. No big deal. Like it says, it's fully refundable. So storefront new, signage new, lighting new, obviously. So here's where we need to add the stuff from the other LOI, starting with tenant allowance. Wow. So no period. We'll take the same formatting. Tenant allowance. Okay, and the easiest way to do this is to literally just pull the paragraphs over. Now, we haven't totally wrapped this up yet, but this is why I'm kind of like pushing on this, that we need to figure out a number, because whatever we ask for, we're not going to be able to really go back to the wishing well and ask for more. It definitely is possible. With Elevate, for example, since you were a part of that one, I think you saw how that happened, where the deal took so long to happen. At the beginning, we were getting bids for like 150 to get a build out. By the time we were getting close to a signed lease, those people were backing out and doubling their bids. So Elevate had to go back and ask for more tenant allowance. But the way we were able to do that was that they basically offered, to do it kind of as a loan, to where they got more tenant allowance in lieu of paying more rent in an amount equal to the same, payment they would be paying back on a loan with interest over the 5-year term. So it's a really normal thing that I've done before. Most tenants would have no idea they can even do that. Trophy definitely is not the kind of tenant that would do that, because they get very emotional and they would walk away from it if it just didn't work. They would not be the kind of tenant to come back and say, okay, we'll pay an extra $5,000 a year, 25,000 over 5 years to get an extra $25,000 in tenant allowance. So I just don't even want to go down that. So I just want to ask for what we need up front, and then know, this number is what needs to be negotiated. So let's see. So a couple other paragraphs. So now we can go through this LOI. A lot of this, so you can kind of see stuff that I went through here, is pretty similar to what I'm redlining on the other one. Exclusive, that's a really good one. I'm almost positive actually that they don't have a kiosk operator. So I definitely like that, because they do have a couple competitors in the area. Oops. There we go. The right text. Dude. Okay. Okay. So, tenants shall have the exclusive right upon the property to sell cupcakes. Other tenants whose menu offerings consist of less than 25% of cupcakes, I'm going to say, or macaroons, because that's become a big part of their business, or I do not know how to spell macaroons. I think that's how you spell it. Or macaroons. Okay. Other than tenants, examples of this exemption would be Starbucks, because Starbucks obviously will sell one cupcake, so we have to make sure that it doesn't affect every single tenant's ability to have their regular menus. That's why we use 25%, because basically the only concern would be someone like Pinkabella Cupcakes, or maybe a national cupcake operator that would come in and then kind of overshadow them. So basically they have the exclusive right to sell cupcakes or macaroons. So anybody else whose business is more than 25% of that would obviously be a cupcake operator, because Starbucks isn't going to offer 25% of the menu to be cupcakes. So anyways, will we get this? Maybe. They gave it to us at Northgate. Well, they were going to give it to us until we backed out. So I definitely would think it's possible. Delivery date, already got it. Rent commencement date, I was already using the same structure. Security deposit, same thing. Additional rent, same thing. Percentage rent. So you kind of see here, I did 8% over an initial breakpoint of 750. After seeing what she came out with, I don't want to use 750 because that's way too unrealistic. Delivery condition as is, just like their LOI says. Tenant work, partial remodel, that's already in theirs. Tenant allowance, use the same paragraph. Brokers, got to make sure we ask for money. Okay, that's why I'm comparing these. Get the right font. Boom, 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 boom. And I got to use my retail real estate consultants is kind of like my consulting firm, but ProRex LLC is the real estate firm that I can get paid commissions to by. I have another real estate firm called Equities LLC in Washington and Arizona, but since this is a mall deal and this is somebody Dave's likely to talk to, I'm going to run it through our company together with him. just for sensitivity reasons. Basically, I get the same amount of money, but I just don't want him to think that I'm doing mall deals, outside of his company in Washington, just because, again, there's sensitivities there about that. So so change that to ProRex, change this to capital, so it matches. There we go, brokers. And again, I'll give you 30% of that. So let's do this shit. Brokers. Signs, already in there. Occupancy threshold. I think we should ask for it for sure. There does not appear to be a leasing problem at this mall like there is in some others. But you never know. Okay, occupancy threshold, co-tenancy. Tenancy shall be continued with the following tenants. This is good because we're going to be right next to Nordstrom, so we'll definitely want this. Co-tenancy. So now you can kind of see why we would probably just have used our own form, but I want you to see this process, so that's why I'm doing it. So again, sorry for the long video, but basically I want to be able to slap this thing up on, why do I keep doing the numbers? There we go. Up on, the cloud or something like that, or in a file or somewhere, maybe even on YouTube. But that way you can refer to this whenever you have questions about LOI or any of these topics. That way I can kind of just throw a project at you sometime and be like, all right, figured out, which is the best way to learn. You know what I mean? So parking, I went this route with Northgate Mall because they have these branded delivery trucks and they really don't have anywhere to park them. So they end up at their house a lot, and they don't have really anywhere to park them at their commissary. They kind of do, but so they wanted to start parking them one at all of their stores as kind of like extra signage and marketing. But it was really a stupid conversation because it's a mall and they really can't offer you dedicated parking space. You have to literally basically the mall doesn't own the parking lot. The mall owns the parking lot with the department stores. It's kind of like an HOA. So you would literally have to go get approval from every single department store and go up the ladder to all their CEOs and or directors of real estate or something to sign off on something, and it's a crazy process. I don't even want to bring this up. Let's see. Self-help, this is something for a bigger tenant like AT&T. I'll probably delete this out of theirs. Assignment, sublease, definitely they need this right. Let me check to make sure it's not in here already. It's not. So we're going to add that. We definitely need to make sure that we're discussing that up front. Trophy is the kind of business where if they get a little bit bigger, we'll probably start franchising. So basically, we can offer this kiosk to a franchisee and, they can basically sell this business to them, this location. And then we can assign the lease to that person. So tenants have the right to assign the sublease, blah, 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 blah. Language to be further addressed in the lease. Landlord acknowledges that the premises may be occupied by one or more tenant affiliates and their employees, and such use premises will not be considered an assignment. Okay, yeah. So this actually discusses that franchisee tenant affiliate thing. So if they were to potentially franchise out this location at some point down the road, we would not actually need to go through a assignment. They really would want to. That's kind of the point of franchising, is you take the risk off of your plate and then you put it on someone else. So that way the person who takes over, they will, be motivated to do a good job. Outside promotions. I'm not going to even go there. Lease form, landlord's lease form. That's obvious. Trade name. hazardous, plan, sign, that's already operating hours, that's obvious, utilities, that's obvious. Okay, so that's basically it. Again, this LOI has more stuff in it. We'll probably use this one. But what you can see here is if we were to redline the landlord's version and make sure that we add in all the stuff that we want to, but for the sake of being quick and not, starting an entire new document and just using theirs, like let's say we're in a rush to get a store open really quick. This would be how we would redline the landlord's version. Now, okay, so I know that was already long, but let me get through this version on this side. So I have mostly filled out this template. You can kind of imagine, obviously, just going through and just typing all this out to make sure this is what it says. But there's a couple things that need to be added. So just to show changes here, I'm gonna leave the track changes on. 908. What I'll do is I'll accept all of these so that this is more of a black line. So I drafted this to Kurt Utterbach. It is not Kurt anymore. It is now Lisa Wilcox, which is what we've obviously found out. Lisa Wilcox. Let me find, so her information is probably going to be on her LOI here. It's another good reason I'm going through this with you, because you'll be able to see all this kind of stuff. So hers is on here, lisa.wilcox@urdev.com. So basically, the more of these you do, the more you kind of know what their emails are going to be off the top of your head, just because it's their first name, last name. Okay, so that's that. Her phone number is different. She just sent me that. So let's just go through this just to make sure we did this. She just told me her new phone number, 415, blah, blah, blah. So let's go over here, add that. Okay, so I will accept all these changes, so it won't look redline like this, but the rest of this is primarily going to be the same. So when you're creating an LOI, even from scratch, this is exactly how you go through and change it. The landlord's name up here, every mall has a different entity, so I try to make the leasing rep for the mall put this in. So I just put please provide, and that's just basically going to be like that in every first draft LOI. By the time it gets to a final LOI and it goes back and forth a few times, we need to make sure that the landlord has put this in. If they have not, we'll need to make sure we call them or email them separately for that information, because that's super important for invoicing commissions, to make sure we have quick access to know what those names are and the federal tax ID, all that kind of stuff. That we need that for invoicing. It's the same story with the exact address of lease premises right here. I put please provide because for construction purposes, like let's say we're dealing with a different client, if they have a general or a different GC and they're not using us, this will be a document where if we have all the information on, we can eliminate people asking us all the questions later. So if we have the exact address, Trophy or whoever the client is can just provide this LOI as a resource to all of the contacts who need it. So like whoever's setting up utilities, all that kind of stuff, will have the exact address to be able to turn on the electricity, stuff like that. So this one's straightforward, 150 square feet. Provide share of the center. I don't even really do that, quite honestly. I'll leave it. It is prudent to have that for inline spaces, but I'm not going to do that here. Permitted use. So we just found that for the other one. So let's go ahead and just grab that, pull it back over, and then I will resave this as our new template going forward. Not this one, but the trophy letterhead one. This one. So after I edit this, I will resave this as a new template going forward so that it'll be easy to do. So fix the permitted use. Exclusive. This is the same thing I asked for over there, except I added and macaroons. No idea if that's spelled right. Menu offerings consist less than cupcakes and macaroons. Delivery date. So she puts April. I think that's cool. I'd like to have a little pressure on this because they want to be open. So I would say let's do that. Let's agree with her for. Again, I'll accept all these changes so that it isn't so redlined. 60 days or the earlier store opening. Again, that's what she offered. I want to try to offer that. So that way, if we get open, we get free rent period, basically. Which it should not take 60 days if we're building ahead of time and prefabbing to get this thing open. It leaves some room, in case we run into, oh, you should have gotten an electrical permit. Okay, shit. So let's get an electrical engineer drawing. We'll submit it. It gives us time to kind of fix that kind of stuff. But we should be able to get open in a matter of days if we do this correctly. I am not sure why I put 4 years here. I want to use 5. I'm going to put, I think actually this is probably appropriate because now that I have added up her, yeah, okay. So now, again, the more I go through this, the more I kind of come back down to earth about things. So I was initially saying we shouldn't negotiate this. I definitely think we should. So I'm just going to put that there just to make sure I'm stating that. Because she is basically asking that $55,000 all in. So I'm going to say my initial thought over here was to offer $36,000. I think that's what I'm going to offer because that way, the more it's kind of hard to explain this, but the more different numbers you have moving, it's kind of like an equalizer on a stereo. The more things you can move up and down, the more room you have to negotiate the entire deal itself. And, she might have more room, for example, to negotiate the rent than she will those common area charges and stuff, all this right here. Because she is new, she might not have the kind of pull inside of her company to push back about that kind of stuff. So I want to make sure that I'm countering every single topic so that she doesn't think, okay, cool, we agreed on the rent. That one's locked in, concrete. Now let's agree on the rest. So I'm going to put back, so basically what I'll do, I'm just going to go reject insertion, reject deletion, reject insertion, reject deletion. I'm going to put back in that original 36,000. So I like that. So that will be better. Security deposit 1 month. That's standard. Common area maintenance and utilities. So I'm going to say 0 for CAM. I'm going to say, insurance. So they're not charging us insurance, but they are charging us promotion. So okay. And I am going to leave these as 0 because, again, like I was saying, most kiosks do not charge this because it is not actually considered a part of the square footage, what's called the gross leasable area of the center. So again, I'm just going to try. I'm going to try to leave this here like it is. So percentage rent, 8% over natural breakpoint. That is much better than what I put over here, which is 10% of a unnatural breakpoint of 500,000. I know I said earlier I wasn't going to do this high, but the more that it's sinking in that she did offer 55,000 all in, I want to make sure that I start out extreme so that I can have quite a ways to come down. Okay, delivery condition as is, tenant work, blah blah blah. That's going to leave that. Tenant allowance. So this kind of comes back to now where I was saying sometimes you can get an entire first year's worth of rent out of the landlord. So I want to try. I want to ask for that. But again, this is where it becomes difficult because we need to make sure that we know that we can do that. So I'm going to ask for this, and then this will buy us some time to figure out if we can do it, let's say, for $15,000. If we can do it for $15,000, we know that we can come down in half, right? So, and then add on top of it whatever we can make. If we know we can do it for $5,000, we can do $15,000 and know that we can make $10,000. So brokers. Again, I should change this from retail real estate consultants to the actual brokerage, which is Prorex LLC. Landlord signs, occupancy. Yeah, so I'm just gonna leave all this. Co-tenancy, Nordstrom's. Yeah, because they're right by Nordstrom's. They want that. I'll leave the parking in here because that way, it's giving me things that I can give up on and be like, okay, well, I'll delete the parking if you can give me the commission. You know what I mean? So, assignments, this is good. Assignment fee, none. Insurance, so we'll just leave all this. Again, it gives me more things to negotiate back and forth. All right, so that's the red line process. Sorry again if that's obvious. A lot of people in the industry who've been in the industry for a long time still don't know how to do this, but it is how you negotiate things. So just for a quick example, as they redline, their word's going to have a different username. So just to go through this real quick, let's just say they have their initials or landlord or something. Now when they come back in here and they do their track changes, they can come in and, let's say, delete the entire exclusive. And then it shows in a completely different color. Let me show that in a different way because that was a little too much. But so let's say they delete the party supply and greeting cards part because someone else has that exclusive. So they would delete it like this, and they would say, that's what it looked like. And then you come down here and let's say they negotiate the rent back up to $42,000, right? So then it would look like that. And then whatever that number is, I'm just guessing, but let's just say it's that. So that's what a red line starts to look like. It deletes, your changes, and if they agree to stuff, they'll just leave your changes there. And if they add this back in, this would be how they would do it. They would just type it back in, or the earlier of store opening. So that's what a red line starts to look like after it goes back and forth. And then what I would do is I would go, when it came back to me, I would do something like this, like R.1, R.1, and then it's a different color. So that way it can show that I'm coming back and I'm deleting it. Let's just say I'm deleting some of it. Then it's a different color. So that's how the red line process works, going back and forth. I don't want any of this. Okay, so, oops. Like this, and then what you do at the end of it to make a clean doc. So usually when you're negotiating, you never make a clean doc, but because you want all the changes to be shown throughout the negotiation. But once there is a final document that's fully agreed to, you would A, save as first as a red line, like this. So like basically I would change the date and go 1/30/19 red line before I save it as a black line, because when I save it as a black line, it gets rid of everything. And this is how. So you go accept all changes and stop tracking. Boom. Change the entire document, and it actually deletes all of those changes. They no longer exist. So there's no way to go back and get them. That's why you want to save the red line first to make sure. So now you can kind of go through and proofread, and you got a good, nice looking, clean document. Even when I use a template, like a black and white black line template like this to start a new document, I will typically draft it with changes so that I can make sure that I'm actually seeing what I'm seeing. And there's some things here you'll start to see as you go through the black line. Looks pretty good for the most part, but I see one paragraph where I did not make sure it was the same font. So, can't see that there. Where? Oh, so home. So Times New Roman, and this is Calibri. So make sure we go to Times New Roman with 11 sized font. There we go. So that's a pretty clean looking document. Now, so again, this is a document where I've updated a lot of what we would call template language. So the rent commencement date, change that to no longer say or the earlier store opening. I changed the use clause. So I added macarons to the use clause. Changed the brokers section. So I want to do that. And basically every time, we kind of realize that there's better language we should be using, I always try to save a new template. And that's the template that I would use every single time going forward to draft a new LOI. So what I'll do here is I'll save this as the black line that I want to use going forward. So sometimes you'd actually save it like this, same black line. Since this is the first document that I'm going to be sending to the landlord, I don't want to put that on there. So I'm just going to save it as 1/30. So that's another way to do it. So this will be the document. Now that I've gone through this, I have shown myself that this document right here looks much better, more professional than doing theirs. Again, there's going to be some times where, they'll send us something, hey, I got another offer in this space. If you give me an LOI, back by the end of the week, I might be able to get you approved. We might do something like this where we just redline their document. But again, I just want to go through both of these so that you could really kind of see just how the redline process works. But again, we're basically saying the same thing, but if we're saying the same thing, we might as well use our document, and then I'll let her redline this document, or if she is how I think she is, she's probably going to call me the second I send this to her, and she's going to tell me all the issues she has verbally, and then I'll have to redline for her. So that's another process. And basically, I just have to go through and redline and put the review tracking, name to landlord when I do that for her comments. So anyways, I'm not going to save that, but all right. So that is how you make a LOI, and this is going to be what I send the landlord right now. Again, the template part of it. Whoops. Let's make sure this looks a little better down here. Release plan, I don't really have one. No, that looks fine. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to save this. It should be saved already. Like I said, though, I'm going to save it as a new template. So when I do that, like, if you're on your computer and you're not hooked up to our VPN yet, basically, you can save it wherever you want. But what I do is I have a trophy file, a company file. I don't have a template file, so I'm going to make a template file. I probably have saved it as a template on my own documents on my own laptop, but go ahead and just do this the right way while I'm showing you this. And then, so template, LOI, it might have multiple templates, so I'll organize them here. And it does not need a template name necessarily. Like I could just save it as this file. That way I would know kind of what deal it's from anyways. So I will probably just save it with this file name. Yeah, that way I'll know in my mind if I've done anything more recent to make sure to check it against that. But this is fine for now. But that way I have that in a template file. So again, if I ever send you like a deal and say, hey, take a stab at this. So if you want to learn how to write up LOIs, here you go. The best way to do is to watch this video as a resource, and then obviously just trying things and just kind of fumbling your way through is the best way to learn. So like the next deal we do, I'll get a proposal from the landlord. I'll just forward it to you along with this template, and then you can just take a stab at going through and changing all the info. And it's really easy. Once you start doing it. This is what I literally started off helping Dave out with for an entire year. I was just the LOI guy. Even Kevin, my younger stepbrother, like this is what he did for Dave when he was like 15 years old. So it's really easy to figure out. Once you get it, and it's really not hard. It's definitely confusing, the first few times that you do it because you won't know some of these terms. But anyways, let me end this video because I'm ticking up to an hour here, but this is a really good resource, and I definitely think this will help as we do this. So, all right, you're sending me some text here too, so I'll get back to you here on those. And signing out, LOI 101, over.